Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the No Coach podcast. This is episode 211, Rewild Your Life with Brooke Leavitt. So Brooke has joined me for the past two episodes. If you haven't listened to them, I'll give you a recap. I encourage you to check them out later, but stay with us now. Episode 209, we talked about experiencing burnout and the three different types of burnout beyond the one that Suze recognized, which is being perpetually exhausted and can't get out of bed. So I found that really insightful. And then in episode 210, we talked about bye-bye burnout. Brooke talked about her own journey with burnout and how she went on a retreat with Martha Beck. And what I loved about that episode was sometimes when people go to retreats or they, have an experience where they leave their everyday life, then they come back and almost get this wistfulness. And it's like, when my life's on retreat, then I'm amazing. And when life's at home, it's shit. And they just always are looking for the next break. But what I love that you shared, Brooke, was talking about the integrations and the changes that shift made being out of your day-to-day that you might not have been able to have if you didn't get like out of the cocoon or hamster wheel, neither of which I'm all about metaphors today. But I loved that. So in this episode, coming around the full circle into Rewild Your Life, where do you want to start with this?
Yeah, so I don't want to leave people hanging, being like, wow, you really brought me down talking about burnout. And then you tempted me with understanding how you changed, but you didn't give me any concrete things that I can do. So that's what this is about. And happy to talk all about different kinds of retreats. But I'm curious, have you ever been on a retreat?
I have been on many a retreat, a tax-deductible business expense that's a holiday. Hell yeah, I'm here for it. I've been on lots, all within Australia. I don't like to travel overseas, personal choice. I'm highly claustrophobic, so a very long time in an airplane is a challenge for me. Though when I cruise, yeah, baby. And if people have retreats on a cruise ship, I would be there for that. Anyway, yeah, so I've been to one with Angela Henderson, and that was absolutely fabulous up at the Gold Coast. I've been with one in Clare Riley on the Sunshine Coast. That's where I finished my book. So for those of you who've read my book, I started writing it in 2018. I spent 6 months on it. I paused it, went on a retreat in 2021, because 2020 we never went anywhere. And I finished it in like 5 days because just the space being away, as you said. I've also been on a retreat to Melbourne with Suze, also named Suzanne, also named Suze Chadwick. Yeah, I've been on others as well. I absolutely love it, but I haven't been in a while. So this is wetting my whistle.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a pretty cool experience. I have primarily been on yoga retreats because I used to think of it in a very similar fashion of it's a holiday, but I don't have to plan all my meals and all my stuff. And it's kind of a pre-selected community. So I figured if I'm traveling, this has been my thing for a long time. I've always liked to travel for extended periods of time. I think the US culture has it way wrong where we take like 2.5 days and think that that's going to boost anything in our life. But
oh no,
yeah, so
you've barely, for me, 2.5 days, I've barely started to unwind and then I have to go back again. Yeah, no thanks. And I've done a couple of yoga retreats too as well. It's hilarious because they're usually vegan and I'm not. And my husband's like, you're going to starve. And I'm like, no, but vegans who are vegan know how to prepare the food. If I was cooking vegan, we probably would starve. But somebody else making it, it's amazing.
Yeah. Most of them are vegan. I have a joke with actually my book editor. We met in Colombia on a yoga retreat, funny enough. And the retreat that we went on, and I will not do this to my clients, they like calorie restricted us. And so they used to feed us vegan soup and it was all eggplant soup. And so soba de aubergine, we just kept making joke upon joke about like, oh, wonder what's for dinner today. Is it going to be eggplant soup yet again?
No way. I would not come to that. But part of looking at the menu plan does, because I do have some things about eating. But yeah, no, if you said calorie restricted, I'd be like, I'm out before I was even in.
Yeah, they didn't tell us that because I also would have opted out. I was for sure an unhappy, hungry yogi for the week, but otherwise it was fun. But nevertheless, I've been on a lot of retreats and I've never seen one offered that has an aftercare support system. So like you said at the very beginning of this episode is you go on this beautiful, lush retreat. Everything is easy. You're taken care of. The food is prepared for you. They rub your feet. I mean, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. And then you go home and there's just this stark contrast, and it's really quite painful. And so for my retreat, I wanted to prepare people to come home for re-entry. Like, it's kind of a sacred process, honestly. Like, let's honor the fact that this is like a shock to the system to go back into airports, TSA lines. It's an ordeal. And then provide 6 months of aftercare support, because most people aren't going to rush and make a huge decision. If they do, there's going to be a bit of an aftershock for any change, right, that comes into our life, healthy or unhealthy or otherwise. And so 6 months of really supportive aftercare, which is where the one-on-one coaching really begins. So we can meet every week and make sure that all the ups and downs, you have someone walking really alongside you, right? And knowing that you are going to have all the right answers. It's so nice to have someone who's holding belief for you and giving you tips and tricks. Not trips, that would be weird. Tips and tricks along the way afterwards. So kind of combining all of my favorite things about the best retreats that I've been on all over the world with this really lush aftercare program where you have group support and one-on-one coaching also.
And I love the way you frame that, because often on a retreat, you may make a decision. It could be to do something, like I'm going to create X. It could be to stop doing something, like I'm going to set a boundary here, I'm not going to keep doing this or whatever. And while you're at the retreat, it makes perfect sense. It's great. It's awesome. It's amazing. And then, as you said, when you get home and you have the culture reality shock, airports, bills, cooking your own meals, all this sort of stuff, and then you kind of left to your own devices. And what, when you're away and in that cocoon, seemed really like reasonable and easy, when you're faced with the stark reality of day-to-day life, is just too much. So then you drop all the plans and then start planning the next retreat. And then, there's that dichotomy. Whereas if you're like, actually, the whole topic of this episode, rewild your life, the aftercare to come back in, it's like, okay, here are the decisions that you made. How can I support you so that you can move forward with that? It seems like such a great blend of, the retreat to have that spaciousness to make the decisions, and then the coaching to bring them to fruition.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the spaciousness to make the decision, because I don't know about for you, but it takes me probably 3 or 4 days to kind of quote unquote calm down from just the activation of life, especially when I was in these really, really intense careers. So it takes me like 3 to 4 days to kind of get back to baseline. And then my very least favorite thing about extended travel is when you're counting down, like, this is my second to last breakfast. It ruins the whole fucking thing. And so with 11 days on retreat, you have enough time to dip in, and then a lot of time in that really yummy middle part where you're just like, I am luxuriating in time and community and deep discussion. I'm not fighting to be heard. The people around me see me. I've gotten to share some of the heaviest parts of what's on my heart. And then they just start to feel lighter and lighter and lighter. And then we try to keep that for as long as possible afterward, and make sure that they're just not left, hanging in the wind to figure it out on their own. Because I'm not trying to sell retreats and a vacation people. I really want to set people up for something really beautiful where we can have rested women in this world. Can you imagine how awesome that would be?
Yes. And I think there's something, I don't know about anyone else, but often when I rest, like I resist to rest, no pun intended. But when I allow that, that's where the best ideas come in. Like, not from the place where I'm overdrawn, exhausted, underappreciated, all the things we were talking about on the previous episodes, but from the place of slowing down, connecting in, like, what do I actually even want? Because sometimes I think we get so caught up in the minutiae of the day-to-day, or, all this stuff. We end up halfway down the path before we realize. Like, I had Rob Bell on the podcast recently, and I don't know if we said it on the episode or it was just when we're chatting between episodes, but it's like, sometimes you can put the ladder up and climb all the way to the top and realize it's not even against the building, like the wall that you want to be on. And to have that spaciousness to slow down is a gift that we have to really kind of fight for, and hold space for, and then allow ourselves in it. Because sometimes when we do slow down and do the things, as I said on the previous episode, you might say, I'm doing the yoga or whatever, but are you really doing it, or are you doing it while checking your phone and answering emails? We're not it's faux rest.
Mhm. Well, this is the beauty of really moving slowly. And the part of the methodology that I subscribe to is really this idea of, rest until you don't want to rest anymore. And then you move. And maybe it looks like interpretive dance. That's not my thing. Maybe it looks like yoga, more my thing. Maybe it's roller skating. Maybe it's playing with your kids. Maybe it's going for a walk. Like you do that until you don't want to anymore, not on a clock, right? Like you walk until you're like, the Forrest Gump, I think I'll go home now. It's that vibe. But that doesn't happen if you're under 15-minute increments of scheduling all the time. Yeah. So we need this true
Yeah,
amount
you're
of
not actually really getting into the vibe. You're just like, oh, I'm done. Next thing. I've ticked it off my productivity list. Rest is something that's in my productivity list. That should be a giveaway.
Yeah. And it's amazing how I was having a discussion again today, and the question came up of how will I know I'll get stuff done after I leave this intense job? And it's so inbuilt in us that like we can rest 5 times as much as we're accustomed to doing so and produce 5 times as much because we're actually rested. It's like really confusing for people. And that's not really the goal. It just kind of is a byproduct of when you're actually operating from like a deep core, you're in alignment, things just happen easier. Not like, I'm not saying you're gonna
for
like
anyone listening, think of an example, not necessarily leaving your house and going on a retreat, though that's awesome, but in a day-to-day where there's a task that you've been trying to do and it's like banging your head against up the wall and you're staying up late. Like for me, a couple of times, like writing an email or something, I can't get the words, I can't find the flow. I'm just like, it's 10 o'clock at night. If I just go to sleep and wake up the next day, I can usually get that thing done in 5 minutes that I'd spent 2 or 3 hours kind of, and which is it? Like there's been entire days where I've been like, I've got a lot of stuff to do. It's important, but none of it's urgent. I can't get the flow today. So I'm going to do nothing, as in like go watch a movie, sit in the sun, read a book. And from that place of coming back in, then I can get a lot of done in a little bit of time and it's really good quality, as opposed to when you push through and then you have to redo it anyway.
Yeah. And how many hours do we spend doing that when we're doing it according to someone else's schedule? Yeah.
Yeah, I worked for 8 hours to get the tick in the box to earn the check, but I really only worked for like 10 minutes. The rest of the time I just faffed about. So, Brooke, tell us about your retreat.
Yeah, so we will be going to Panama April 16th through the 26th of 2024. We are enrolling. It's only 10 women, so it's not a very big space. They have the entire place just for us. We are going to have lots of delicious meals together.
They aren't calorie controlled.
These are not calorie controls. These are not calorie controlled. They will be healthy and yummy and delicious, and really fresh fish and all the yummy things of being right in the ocean. And we'll do lots of fun stuff, and there will be plenty of time for reading and relaxing by the ocean and by the pool. But I will say the core work that we'll do will be so much more nourishing than a cocktail, so much more nourishing than a cookie could ever be. And so the agenda will be curated very intentionally to get you deep, deep, deep rest, while also moving the needle in terms of getting you towards your goal, which starts with what is the goal? Yeah. A lot of us are so lost that we're like, don't know. And that's a very normal place to be in. And I want to normalize that, but we'll work through all of that. And yeah, I would love, love, love to see people in Panama. It's a big commitment. Yes. So I offer 45-minute free consultations for anybody who wants to talk about it. And I would highly, highly, highly encourage have a conversation, because I want it to be the right fit for you. And yeah, you can find me at brookeleavitt.com/rewild. And that's how you'll get on the calendar.
I love that. Thank you so much. That sounds glorious. So if anyone's keen, go check that out. Thank you for joining me, Brooke. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you everyone for listening. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.